Checkout tracking by the NPD Group brings you a receipt collecting system that gathers data anonymously through technology we created, providing your businesses with answers.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming and actually staying for one of the last panels of the first day of Casual Connect. My name is Mary Min. Ooh, okay. Come on, guys. There's beer after this. I gotta hear this. Fail. Come on, one more time. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Okay. Again, my name is Mary Min, and I'm the VP of Global BD for SEWORKS. We are a security company focused on building tools and software to help game developers protect against hacking and other bad stuff that may happen if people get through and compromise their app. So today, we're going to be talking about mobile security and why mobile security is actually important and why game developers should actually care about security in the first place. So I have 4 lovely panelists here, and we're going to start from the far right, and move this way. So first, we have David Cole of DFC Intelligence. DFC Intelligence specializes in market research for gaming and entertainment. And second, we have Mark Wang, CEO of Hive, developer of Tap Titans. And next, we have Taehoon Kim, CEO of nWay, developer of Chronoblade. And finally, we have Everett Wallace, head of publishing for Oniix Mobile, which is a mobile publisher for China. Okay, so first, I'd actually like to kick off and talk about China.
Great.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about China first because it is a very, very large market. It is actually the world's 3rd largest mobile market in terms of mobile gaming. It's pretty important. A lot of people want to get into it. Now, in terms of how to get into it, you should talk to Everett after the panel. But I think one of the most important things that we run across when we talk to potential developers that come and talk to us about security solutions is their concerns about China. Because China and Russia are one of the most vulnerable markets in the world. According to Tencent, for example, 80% plus of Android phones are rooted. And we all know that rooted devices can lead to a lot more vulnerability and compromises. It's really how you can install cracked apps or any kind of illegal apps from third-party app stores, for example. So I'm going to move this over to talk about Mark and Everett and Tap Titans and their story in China.
Great.
I guess I can start. Thanks. Hi, my name is Mark. Hive, we're based in Toronto. We have been making games for a good 5-6 years now with some successful title in the past. Be the Boss, Battle Run, and the latest one is Tap Titans. Tap Titans story is like a just little kind of side project from us. It's an incremental game, or you can call it clicker game. There's many names of it, but in a nutshell, it's just non-stop tapping on the screen, and you get stronger and stronger and stronger. We wrapped the clicker kind of cookie clicker kind of mechanics with RPG, and make a very interesting game out of it. It started a small project, but we submit just before Christmas, about like December 17th. That's when Tap Titan went live in US App Store, and it was subsequently featured by Apple, and the game kind of exploded. It was got a cult following on Reddit, and there's a lot of players playing the game and sharing them around. And we obviously have a very happy Christmas. The game was on top of the chart. It was a Christmas miracle. It was good time. But then quickly in I think January we start come back from Christmas and we start adding features, and we quickly start to notice there's a few clones in the store. I think that was like February 7th, something like that.
February 4th.
4th, yeah.
When they
4th.
first launched.
Yeah, and we just see some games that look identical to Top Titan. So we're like, okay, I guess they took out UIs kind of thing. And then we download the game and launch it. The game is just identical from top to bottom. Every formulas, every level, every details, UIs, that the whole thing is identical. And so the whole process took like 6 weeks for them. And Apple takes like 2 weeks for them to review the game. So they from we leave have the game out until they finish copying the game, take them a month. Obviously, they don't need to do any character design, UI design, and any of that, right? So that's we don't know what to do. The game is identical to ours, and more. There's just about like 4 or 5 more coming to the store that's having the game that's identical to ours. So at that time we started working with Everett with Chinese publishings. Chinese is a huge market, but we can't go there alone. There's no Android, there's no Google Play, and the culture is very different. And how to monetize to play is different. So we strike up with a deal with Oniix Mobile to take out the clones. And part of the deal is that they were going to help us to battle with all these clones. So I'll let Everett talk some of those things that they did for us.
Well, that's a pretty good summary. I mean, the problem was Tap Titans was a phenomenal fit for China. So it was already making a bunch of money on iOS in China, but what that meant was it also gathered a lot of attention from pirates. So yeah, like Mark said, by February 4, one big pirate came out. It immediately was top 15 downloaded in all of China. And when we started working together, we really started looking into both Android and iOS, kind of the piracy presence. And pretty much so on Android, like you said, Google Play doesn't monetize, so there's a fragmented app store ecosystem. So there's 30, 40 stores you have to pay attention to. Pretty much on every single one, there was a Tap Titans clone that was monetizing and doing pretty well. It was getting good reviews. And then on iOS, there were around 4 iOS clones that were released by mid-February or so.
It's not just small dev too. There are one of them was actually cloned by a big company, US traded, right?
Yeah. So the 2 big clones that we had to deal with. I feel like when people think of piracy in China, they think of a developer in his basement who's really talented and puts out a game. That's totally wrong. One of the pirates was a shell company that we tracked down that was funded by a larger parent company that was then funded by US-based VCs. So very well-established company. Another one was a publicly traded US company that listed in the US. Huge name, you guys would all recognize it. We're not gonna say it here. But these are big companies. So the challenge was kind of twofold. It was taking down all of the Android pirates, which meant we had to get all of the official versions up on every store. Because if you think about it, the stores are in competition with each other, so they don't want to put up your version, or they don't want to take down a pirate unless you put up your version. So you really have to cover all the top stores and then just be vigilant about making sure all the pirates that come up are taken away. And then on iOS, pretty much what we did was we opened up a complaint officially through Apple and supply as much evidence as possible that this is a clone. So it's designed the same, but when you run the data at level 100, the monster has exactly the same hit points as it does in the official version. So it was clearly an exact clone.
If I remember correctly, I think the monster even had the same name.
Yeah.
Same name,
same name, same sound clips, same HP, and they told me that they have never seen my game before. I was like, wow, what a coincidence. Maybe our child will have the same name too.
We are about to launch in China, and you guys are scaring the shit out of me right now.
But there's hope. There's hope. Maybe we should move to actually how we fought them.
I think I think we want to actually even like move on to, okay, so how did we resolve this and reach the happy ending that we both know that Tap Titans came to?
Definitely. So on Android, like I said, it was about getting up on all the official stores. You really need a partner or your own China offices to do that. On iOS, it's opening up the complaints through Apple and then just being very, very persistent in showing the facts, showing that this is clearly, irrefutably a pirate. And then we found that what was effective was applying pressure from different angles. So with the publicly traded company, we basically went right to the top and we said, it's very clear that this is a pirate. It's very clear this is illegal. We can threaten legal action and we can threaten to go to the press and tell everyone what's happening. And it actually took them a while to then respond to that, but eventually they did take down their app. We think it also prevented them from putting a lot of marketing money into it. And this was a big enough company that if they wanted to, they could buy a top 5 spot at any time. So, and eventually we got all 4 of the iOS pirates taken down and well over 90% of the Android. So it is possible to do, but it's tough. It takes some work.
I'd just like to add on that. I guess from developer point of view, there's so much we can do to prevent them, but from our side, we need to keep innovating and add content to our game. So they keep them off balance and keep chasing you. And if you can keep adding new things and keep the fans happy and establish you yourself are like the clear, the best games, then player will still follow you.
So I have a question for the panel, which is sometimes game developers will say, well, if somebody's copying my game, sometimes imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and it's a good problem to have, right? Somebody actually pirating is good. What do you guys think of the statement?
Well, sure. I think, obviously, I think a big problem you see in the game industry just overall, I mean, you've seen these companies that have not been able to enter China in the video game business because piracy is such a huge problem. I mean, it's a proven problem that the industry has been fighting for years and years. And the other problem is, games just get copied all the time. And so it's legitimate in many cases because they're just developing their own take on that version. But generally when they say that, it's flattery, it's a good problem to have, they're generally talking about the fact that their game was so successful that someone took the time to actually copy it and build a competing game legitimately versus the whole piracy issue where they're just completely stealing your game. Then those are two very separate issues. And the piracy issue is basically not copying, it's stealing. Is what it comes down to.
Okay. I think that's a good way to put it. Okay. So I wanted to switch to the next topic here and move off of piracy. So piracy is just one of the problems that can happen, right? Talking with multiple game developers, the number one concern that they actually come to us for help with is actually not piracy, surprisingly. It's memory hacking, or being able to modify the memory of a game to change the values and therefore cheat, right? They can change the outcome of a PvP. They can change the game level gold, or they can give themselves items that they shouldn't have, or they can just pretty much cheat their way to the top of the leaderboards, which can be really discouraging. And this problem is not just in China or just in Asia. It's actually prevalent all across Europe, US, pretty much globally. Anywhere there are games, there are going to be cracked versions or tools that exist for people to try to cheat on them. And it's been around since PC days, web days, social games. Pretty much, if it's hackable, if somebody thinks that they can game a system, they will, right? So I think TK kind of wanted to talk to us about some cases that he's heard firsthand about.
Yeah, so we're a developer of Chronoblade, and it's a core game with real-time synchronous multiplayer. And the trend we're seeing is that more of the core gamers who used to play on the PC are coming to mobile, and they have very similar spending habits, and they're just as competitive as they were on PC. And so what we've seen in Korea is that for core games like us and Raven and some of the top games, just because the game is a top game and the gamers want that glory of being at the top of a leaderboard, there are people who would spend tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, but that's how these games make money. But when you start seeing some insane numbers, that's obviously from memory hacking, it seriously discourages the spenders and the guys who are doing it legitimately, or doing it fairly, or spending money to do it. So memory hacking can potentially kill a game that's generating millions of dollars each day. So I think it's a very serious problem.
We actually had a developer that came to us for help. They released their game without any kind of protection whatsoever, became so heavily memory hacked that they became such a huge victim that the game economy was virtually ruined, to the point where the game couldn't grow enough to generate a revenue that was sustainable, and ultimately the game was shut down, which was really a shame because the game was actually a really good game, right? So looking at that and seeing like the potential of like great titles just kind of being killed from the beginning is just kind of sad, right? I saw like Mark kind of nodding his head very vigorously.
Yeah, well, we have another game. It's called Battle Run. It's a real-time multiplayer running game where four people compete at the same time, and kind of like TK is talking about. It's like some players are able to kind of pause the game at the beginning and just drag their players and just put them to the end using memory hack, and so people just see them just fly into the end. And they really enjoy that. It's like I'm God in this game, right? It's people just see ya later kind of thing, right? And we become so bad that we have to do a lot of things to prevent that. To just kind of if people, we do a lot of statements to make sure you cannot travel too fast, too slow, kind of things, and just prevent that. But yeah, memory hack is something that's really hard to prevent. It's not like a save file. You can encrypt it. You can do a lot of things with it. Memory hack, a lot of times it's just and it's really ruining the other players' feeling, right? It's not just you. It's not just you hacking with your game. It's you ruining other people's experience. From game developer point of view, I don't mind if you hack the game, because if you just want to break the game yourself, feel good about it, it's fine. But as long as you start ruining other people's experience, then that's a bad thing. So in Top Titan, when people cheat in the tournament day, we put them in a cheater pool. So all the lions start to eat each other, and so once we detect that they are in a cheater pool, and they just you'll be fighting with the strongest cheaters, and so good luck with that. But we just don't want cheater to ruin other people's experience, because that will ruin the game. Yeah.
I'm curious, David or Everett, if you guys have heard of any other instances of this happening with other gaming developers as well, in both China and outside of China, in other markets.
Well, I think this is a problem. Having followed the online MMO market for a good 15 years or more, back when the first games launched, and that problem of cheaters is something that's always been a huge issue that they've had to fight, because these are games that that people are paying $10-15 a month to subscribe to, and they just won't tolerate cheating. And these games have these big, huge $100 million plus budgets, and it's a huge problem. They're constantly having to fight. The problem in the mobile space is the games don't really have the budget or those resources to really fight that problem, which is it's an ongoing problem in any successful game. You're going to have people who are going to try to hack the game and cheat the system, and it's always been a problem. I think the mobile space, it's tough because you don't. Developers just in general don't have the resources to focus on those type of security issues, and that's where we see the problem is just it's going to happen in any successful game, and the problem is a real catch-22 unless you're successful enough to be able to afford to kick out the cheaters. It's a really big challenge.
I think that this problem's been around for a while. It's just that the mobile games have mostly been a single-player experience. So even if there are cheaters, you just it doesn't damage you that much. Like other people are not seeing. Like you're the only ones who are seeing that. The numbers. But as the mobile games become more and more like core PC games, there's this level of interactivity that hasn't been done before. Like you're meeting other people in real time, you're seeing other characters, you're playing co-op with other players, constantly seeing other players, and someone who's cheating is more visible because that person is constantly there and is constantly, kicking other people's ass. So like, I think it's becoming more of a problem because that really discourages the players from spending in the game, and they will eventually leave.
So no one really cares whether I have unlimited lives on Candy Crush, but someone will really care if I cheat on Tap Titans.
Exactly.
Yeah. When you get that MMO environment type where you're competing in a world against other people, I mean, that's totally changes the dynamic. You just are not going to tolerate cheaters when you're spending real money on that type of environment.
The only thing I'd add is if you mentioned the issue of game studios don't necessarily have the budget to deal with it on a global level. The only thing I would advocate is maybe leverage the connections with publishers, with local publishers, so they can work on a kind of a local level, attacking those cheaters or those problems that might be specific to each country.
Okay, so I'm going to scare everybody here for just a second. Sorry. I'm going to read off some numbers, and then we're kind of I'm going to ask you guys a question, right? So here are the numbers. 75% of apps, according to Gartner, will fail basic security tests through 2015. And in an independent study that we have conducted at SEWORKS, we took the US Android store, and we found that of the top 200 free apps, roughly about 80% gaming, 85% of them were vulnerable to being hacked. Out of the top 100 free non-gaming apps, it was about 80%. For the top 100 paid apps, it was about 83%. And the top 100 free game apps, which is where a lot of the in-app purchases and microtransaction systems, free-to-play games happen, 89% of these games are vulnerable. And what I mean by vulnerable is that when we did the study, we found that they could be decompiled and potentially be reverse engineered, i.e. the source code could be viewed by someone who had the intent to do it. There were not enough roadblocks to stop these people. So we are talking almost 9 out of 10 developers are not employing correct security practices in their games. Given a lot of these instances, we see lawsuits of gaming companies suing each other for piracy. We see game developers posting about how they've lost revenue to fraud or to cheating or to piracy. And this has been going on for years and years. So you mentioned earlier, David, about how they don't have these resources, and this is really why they can't tackle the problem. Do you think that that is the only reason, or why do you guys think that developers these days are still not employing good security practices? And then I'd actually love to hear from you guys.
I'll kick it off.
Yeah.
Just from the China perspective, I think one of the issues is that it's such a huge market, but it's also a pretty removed market from the rest of the world. I've sat down with developers from pretty big studios who are amazed to see that they have 20 million downloads in China from a pirate across 30 different stores and an iOS copycat. So I think one of the issues is that it's almost difficult to see the effects of not properly securing your app.
So they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah. They're not seeing the extent of the problem. The one other thing I'd say is that, those are very impressive numbers, but seeing China, it's not that surprising. A lot of studios think that having a server-side games or, having games that have a lot of server backend protects them. Most games can be hacked. We found that you really can't underestimate a pirate. They're very, very sophisticated in being able to hack a game. So, it's not surprising.
Yeah.
90% of.
I think like games are getting heavier and heavier. There's a lot more functionality. And if we were to depend entirely on server-side processing for all the information, you would never be able to play a game, right? You would press a button and wait 5 seconds for that result to come back, and then your character will punch someone, and that's not very fun, right? So the heavier the games get and the more robust they get, we start to rely a lot more on client processing, and I think that's part of the problem that contributes to this as well.
Definitely.
I think also a part of the reason is because until now mobile games tend to be small, with smaller teams, smaller budget. But I think as they become bigger and bigger, with like 10, 20, $100 million budgets, that they're going to want to make sure that their game is protected. Yeah.
Pretty much along the line with TK. I mean, it's super competitive these days. I wouldn't say it's a good problem to be cloned, but like that's kind of like stage 2 problem. The first stage 1 is to get people to play first. If nobody's playing it, even if people cheat, that's not a big problem, right? So that's what a lot of people's mentality, and I just won't worry about people playing the game first. But sometimes it could be too late at the end, and it's not. There's a lot of things you can do relatively easily to prevent that from happening. A lot of people just didn't know or care about it. That's why a lot of indie studio tend to just focus on get it hit first, and then worry about clone or whatnot next. But like Mary said, there's a lot of things you can do relatively easily to prevent like a lot of hack already. Top Titan is reverse engineer right away, and like every single formula is stolen. And when we put in a lot of like how do we detect cheaters, and next day Reddit will be all over how we try to detect the cheater, and they will just find out how to come back with it. And Reddit is great, but it's also very scary. But yes, we learn a lot from this experience, and hopefully we'll do better next time, kind of thing.
So I think what you're saying is a couple of things. One is that right now, because the competition is so fierce, everybody's in a race to put games out as fast as possible, and security is just not really one of those concerns. It's kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
security, there's so many issues going on trying to get an app just out into the marketplace, and with the budgets constraints and having to build an audience, it's security comes really down the pipeline there, because it's like, oh, that's a problem you have once you're successful. Then you can start to worry about security. But I think we're really just at the tip of the iceberg in terms of the security issues. I think more and more as we start to see these news stories about these services getting hacked, there's going to be both consumer awareness of the dangers of having that information on these devices that are very hackable in these applications, and I think that's going to lead to more and more government intervention, which is going to come to the point where you're going to have security in your products. I mean, it's going to get to the point that at some point governments are going to start to intervene. I think we're just really at the tip of the problem where the issue is more, okay, we're losing money through piracy, or our consumers are getting pissed off because there's so many cheaters out there. That's really, I think, just the tip of the iceberg of what's going to be a much larger security problem going forward. That I think this is so new. Markets outside of Asia where the whole free-to-play monetization method is really fairly new comparatively in the marketplace, that a lot of these issues are just starting to come up that in many cases have been around for quite a while over in Asian markets.
And you said something very interesting about Reddit, Mark, because I really like Reddit. You don't want to know how many hours I spend on it on a day. But you said something about how when you came up with a new roadblock, all of a sudden Reddit would 24 hours later figure out how to get around that, and it's a little scary, right? So there's more of them attacking you than you defending them, right?
Yeah, it's really like a cat and mouse game. Like we put on something, they would find on a way around it. We do try to do our best, but yeah.
Yeah. One of the comments that we also hear is that there's not enough qualified security professionals who are knowledgeable about mobile security enough to be able to cover every app or be in every company, right? There's a lot of engineers and a lot of developers and designers, but it doesn't really necessarily mean that they're going to know the best thing about security.
Right, and also a lot of way to prevent cheaters is how to do it from server end. If it's an offline game, there's only so much you can do to prevent cheaters, and but a lot of indie developer hasn't do that much of the server side. They're hard to come by, and they're also very expensive. So it's a lot of time you have to rely on other services to help you. Otherwise, the server guy is fairly expensive, right?
So one last question, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. What do you think developers can do to better educate or prepare themselves to be a lot more secure? What are some best practices that you guys can recommend? Or what advice would you give to a game developer that's about to go live or already is live and going through this hacking problem?
I'll kick it off. I'd say from the China perspective, put it this way, your game is probably going to launch in China on Android whether or not you decide to put it in China. We always tell developers launch in China, try to launch in China the same day that you launch globally. That way you're gonna, all the users are gonna see your official version before they see the pirated, buggy, badly localized versions. So really focus on having the launch simultaneous, and then just be very persistent on iOS and on Android, likely through a partner, on tracking down and taking down all the pirates that do arise. It's an uphill battle. There's no good systems in place from the government or from the stores to really fight piracy. A lot of it actually is really built to help piracy in some ways. But if you're persistent enough, you can actually take down the pirates in China.
I have 3 advice. So for the minute-to-minute gameplay, it's okay to be on the client side, but anything related to items or monetization, make sure it's on the server side. And second thing is work with a strong publisher to launch in Asia and especially China. I tried to do it by myself once and totally got screwed. So work with a strong publishers who can take care of that kind of stuff, and make sure you launch in, like you said, Asia first, and then you can go globally afterwards. But it's not too late to launch in China first.
So for us, it's a lot of lessons learned from Top Titans. That I would say, I think there's a way we can prevent people to decompile your game at the beginning. But if you don't do it at the beginning, you can't do it anymore. That's kind of the case for Top Titan. We can't even prevent people to decompile it now. So I think there's a word, asphyxiating, something like that. There's a word talking about prevent people from decompiling your app. And
obfuscation.
Obfuscations. There's obfuscation. If you can, prevent people to do that at the beginning, do it. It's not that hard, but you can do it afterward, right? So that, and it's like TK says, server side. But memory hacks is it's hard. It's just you try to do as much as you can at the beginning, and then just follow Reddit to see what people are saying about your game, right? So.
Well, I think not being a developer, I guess what I do just in general, read up, go talk to someone like Mary at SEWORKS, who, that's her specialty, is helping developers with those issues, and that's what I think you need to do. You need to go do your research and find who the experts are and what the best practices are, and it is that's an initial step of finding out what the possible solutions are. And clearly that's what companies like SEWORKS, I think, specialize in.
Cool. So I am going to take 3 questions total out of the entire audience. So make them count, everyone. All right, in the back.
I know about SEWORKS, but is there any other third-party solutions that developer can implement in terms of
Oh, sorry, you're asking me. Right. If you're developing on Android, Google offers a free string obfuscator or a code, like a source code level obfuscator called ProGuard, and that comes with the Android building system. They don't really advertise themselves as a string obfuscator as much as it's more of like a repackager. You can try that, and that will help somewhat, and that's something that we definitely recommend, which is doing string obfuscation. There are some other commercially available solutions, including our own product that SEWORKS offers. Everyone has their individual pros and cons, and I fear it'll get a little bit long, so come see me after the panel and I'll try to explain it as best as I can. In terms of iOS, it gets very tricky because one of the things that Apple does is once you've submitted your IAP for approval, they will decompile it, do some static analysis, and then recompile it before they upload it to the App Store. So doing a binary level obfuscation to prevent decompiling to protect yourself would actually ironically make Apple reject your app because they can't decompile it. So iOS is just yet another beast. We highly recommend that you do make sure that you're doing like string code obfuscation and as much obfuscation or encryption as possible. We also recommend that you use dynamic tokens and not static tokens. And there's a couple of other things that I've detailed in a blog on Gamma Sutra, so you can go and search for that as well. Sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, so I thought that the hackers being on these stores would motivate people not to jailbreak the device and go to these illegitimate stores. Is there a reason why that's not the case? I mean, you download the hacked version of my game in the illegitimate app store. It wouldn't be that hard for them to just hack on something that runs, takes pictures of them or whatever, uses a forge and do background processing, use their device as a one of the clients for denial of service attack. It seems like there's a lot of vulnerabilities there that the end users are opening themselves up to. Is there a reason why that's not been an issue for them? In the US, if you run the PC, you go to look for hacks in the PC. You're going to install viruses just about the process of doing that. So I tell my kids, don't do that. But with these illegitimate app stores, it seems like they have more problems than that. With that. So,
I can start. So a lot of users are actually unaware that they are actually downloading this game from not legitimate sources. There's a lot of third-party Android store all over the place, right? I remember in Battle Run, after we kind of tightened up the securities, that the game can only be, because there's a lot of modified version everywhere, right? So they will be able to cheat. Some people are using them to cheat, but some people just get them as if legitimate, right? And so when we tightened up the securities, we actually got a lot of hate email saying that you broke the game. And I was like, wow, we're trying to prevent hackers, but a lot of legitimate players are actually complaining. So it become very, 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 very tricky. And I probably some of them actually have bad intentions. I wouldn't know about that, to try to install virus on their phones and whatnot. But yeah, I'm trying to say that not every user download from illegitimate stores are trying to hack you, but that become a very tricky problem attacking them. Yeah.
So the Top Titans, you worked and you successfully got these clones and pirate copies taken down, which is a success. Did you receive any compensation from the amount of time these things were up there? Because they took it down because they did something wrong, in which case they admitted they'd done something wrong. Did you get some money from it?
They still swear that they never see our games.
So that's the second part of the question then. Is that how do you make money? Did you get paid for those services of taking it down, or if you can't take a cut of any bounty that comes back?
Yeah, definitely. So what we do is we're an end-to-end publisher. So basically we'll take a game and we'll put it into China. And part of that service is dealing with all the piracy and eliminating all the different copycats that come out there. But the way we make money is we enter in a partnership and have a revenue share with our partners. The one thing you can get from the pirates, I mean, you want to just have them removed. That's the most important thing. The best thing you can really get from it is, for some stores, you can actually take over the user base from the pirates. So 360 Assistant is the biggest Android store in China. You can actually submit your app, and if you do it right, you can have the pirated user base get a push notification to upload to your official version. So you can actually take some of the users. That's kind of the best you can do. But we've never really tried to actually go after these shell companies and try to get legal, try to get money out of them. It's not worth the effort.
Do they have to start from the beginning?
No, it's uploaded from where they are in the game. Yeah, but only a few stores actually allow that. 360 Assistant is one, and Mumami, and not too many. Yeah.
Cool.
Time for another quick question? I'm curious about the level, about the reverse engineering. Do you think someone is sort of social engineer enough to get access to the source code, or they just pull the resources out and decompile it? Or what level of sophistication are these pirates using?
Well, I can tell you that it took my husband 2 30-second YouTube videos in order to figure out how to decompile an Android app. They're very, very easy to find. If you do quick Google searches, they will turn up dozens and dozens of these tools, which is really scary. So I think the question is not how easy it is to reverse engineer. It's more of how much more difficult can you make it so that you don't have, or you provide as many roadblocks as possible, right? It's a lot easier for a robber to walk into a house whose front door is wide open versus one that has a lock or one that has a gate around it. And if your gate is electric and has barbed wire and has a whole bunch of Doberman pinschers running around, there's not going to be that many robbers who want to make the effort to really, really break in unless you are a very, highly targeted and highly monetizing app in which you're always going to be a target. But it's exactly like Everett said, it wasn't worth going after those shell companies because it wasn't worth the effort. You're trying to make it less worth the effort as much as possible so that these guys don't go after you.
It's all technology. You're not having to screen your employees who are working on it, but they're secretly blackmailed to find the source code.
Sorry.
Just wondering, how good are these apps? Do they re-implement the game themselves, sometimes well and sometimes crappy? I mean, are the pirated games any good?
They're exactly the same. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, so they on the outside looks very similar. I mean, UI, all that is the same, but the game is less stable, there's less polish, and that's kind of like the main part. And then they also never care about you in terms of like future updates and that kind of thing. So it's fairly like 80% there, but it's just not as good as your own because they whip it together so quickly, right? Yeah. And there's like an Android one. Everyone was saying they just take your games exactly the same and resign it and upload to those stores. So you can't even buy anything. And they just put banners on the top and bottoms and just ads at the beginning just so that they can make a few cents, but they can't even take the IIP. So the user actually have horrible experience. They can't have bad IIP, and they see all these ads everywhere, and the tarnish rate.
Yeah, and that's pretty common. I mean, if you have a relatively popular Android game that's broken into top 150 downloads in a key market, probably within 48 hours of it launching, you're going to be on some of the Android stores in that method. So the users can't actually buy anything, and there's a lot of ads, but the game, almost exactly the way it was created, is going to be available in China.
Yeah. They had problems with their soft launch build going the soft launch in just New Zealand, and it did have 500,000 downloads in China.
Yep.
We have hackathon game went to China.
We don't even want soft launch anymore because of it. We're rewarding the hackers.
Well, the panelists are going to be available after this talk as well for individual questions, so please feel free to approach them. And thank you, everyone, for coming today.
Thank you.